Where are the best spots for castles?
I want to go to Ireland.
So that was.
You know, just for other reasons too.
I want to go to this place.
Cancun? Yeah.
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 I gotta find the best spot for castles. Is it like Ireland or is it Scotland?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think they're castle-y countries.
Are they close? Can I drive?
Yeah, I think they're pretty close.
Okay.
That's the cool thing about Europe, I think, is like you can just go see like 42 countries in a weekend.
Yeah, you get on the tube.
Yeah.
On the tube.
On the tube. What's that?
The subway.
Is that what they call it?
I don't know. I think I'm going to the wrong spot now.
You sounded so confident. You get in the tube. Okay, 5 minutes of nonsense. This is a good episode so far.
Yes, great. My actual real question for you though, I polled my social media audience on this one. I was not shocked at the results. Do you wake up with an alarm clock or your phone?
Neither, actually.
You just don't wake up?
No, I wake up. I just don't need it either. Yeah. No, I think it means I don't sleep well.
Okay.
Is what it means.
Just always awake enough 3 hours before I need to be.
If I do actually set an alarm, I have my watch, to be honest.
Okay.
And it's just like a gentle buzzing.
How kind.
Yeah. Yeah. Why would you use?
An alarm clock.
Yeah, like an obnoxious one.
With a snooze button and
right.
lights and beeps or radios.
Is it so you can actually like physically slam it? Does it feels better? Like you alarm clock in the morning?
No, I think I just never. I enjoy change in many ways. Hate change in other ways.
Right. So
I've always used an alarm clock. So it's just I don't fight that change because what if I set my phone and I don't wake up?
Right.
That's too scary.
Ever?
Ever? What if I never wake up again because I set my phone alarm?
I think we need to talk about what that actually happens.
That's a deeper problem.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like your paper planner. Like we'll never give it up.
Yes, I have to. This year I did transition to putting everything into my Google Calendar, which was huge. Because prior to 2024, I did not put anything in my Google Calendar. So everything does go in my Google Calendar, but everything also still goes in my paper planner.
Yeah. I think there's something about having tangible things still is kind of nice.
Checking it off.
Yeah.
And I don't put little stupid things in my Google Calendar like, oh, don't forget to do this, send this, do that. I put that in my paper planner.
Right. Nate was a jerk this morning.
Yeah, Nate was so mean. Cat eating his dinner.
I feel like I have to reference Nate on every one of these episodes in some way. See if he's listening.
And he never mentions it, so I don't think he is listening.
Failing the test, Nate. What are we talking about this week?
Let's do a verbal walkthrough of a house and what we look at where our eyes go and pointing out and looking for red flags for home buyers.
Right. Yeah, because there's a lot of them.
There is a lot of them, and most home buyers, not all home buyers, but most home buyers when they walk through a house, they just walk in like, oh, this room's a good size. Oh, the walls are gray.
Right.
Especially first-time home buyers, right? They don't really know what to look for. I mean, many, I guess, do, but most don't.
Yeah, and it's sort of our job to look at the things that maybe they're not paying attention to. Yes. Because you and I have been there before, like when we're going to look at homes for ourselves.
Yep.
You're focused on, the macro, not the micro of things.
Yes.
So, okay, so maybe we'll do like just visually walking up to a house and then walking into a house and sort of what we typically look at.
Start to finish of how a showing might go.
Right. Okay, so we pull up into the driveway, get out of our car, and we're walking up to the house. What are the first things that we sort of look for?
So exterior finish, brick or siding.
Yep.
Vinyl siding, steel siding.
Right.
Or is it stucco or something, which is less common around here?
Yeah. And
windows.
Yeah.
Are they like original wood framed windows?
Paint peeling off of them.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yep.
The brick itself, like looking for cracks in the brick.
Visible wear. Also, some houses, brick will have like vines crawling up the house, which looks really nice to a lot of people, but that's actually like deteriorating your brick.
Yeah.
If you pull off those vines, they pull little pieces of your brick off.
And the mortar and stuff,
yeah.
Absolutely. Our admin assistant, Ivana, she has them on her house, and every year she has to clean them off because they're relentless. Like they'll never stop. And they'll actually get up into like your soffits and stuff too, and into your attic.
Yes.
Which is wild.
That's another thing to look at, the soffits, the fascia, and the the eaves troughs.
Yep.
sometimes if you drive by people's house, they have like plants growing out of the eaves,
Yeah.
like clean your eaves off.
Oh, I thought that was like the green energy movement.
Yes, that's like having a live roof, right?
Oh,
Live
yeah.
plant roofs, yeah.
No, it's not. That's not a good thing, people.
If your eaves troughs are dirty enough that you have plants growing out of them, you probably have them backing up as well.
Yeah. Look for like water stains too, like coming down the front of the fascia and even like the siding. It means sometimes that it's clogged and water's just coming over top of it and running down the face of the house. Okay, what else on the outside?
The roof?
Yeah, you can kind of have a visual look at the roof sometimes.
The material, so is it metal, is it shingles, are those shingles curling, is there a tarp on the roof?
There's a tarp, yeah.
Which is real life, it does happen.
Yeah, well it's one piece, it's really waterproof, right?
Yeah, well it's like tarping a trailer in the winter, just protecting your shingles.
Okay, so tarps are bad.
Tarps are negative.
Tarps are bad,
yes.
Okay. Foundation, like look for cracks.
Yes.
That's a big one.
But big cracks, because like small cracks aren't to necessarily freak out about.
That's fair, and that's a good point, because I think every house shifts and moves, and those little hairline cracks aren't usually a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, big ones are big problems.
And sometimes you'll see like cracks or like deterioration of the foundation, but it's just that they've parged over the actual foundation to make it look better, and that's coming off, which isn't actually an issue either. Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you see cracks and you like the house, get a home inspection. You know, the home inspector is probably going to be the realistic sounding board for you and tell you what's major and what's not.
I feel like that's going to be a big preaching point in this episode.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, make sure you get a home inspection.
Yes.
But if you do see a crack in the foundation and it's traveling up into the brick too, that could be something to have a conversation about.
100%, because obviously it's substantial.
Yep. Okay, anything else on the outside of the house? Maybe the door, like the seal around the door.
Yep.
Like if the weather stripping is really old or something.
Yes, if you're walking upstairs, go to the door and you can see under the door and into the house.
You can see the inside,
Yeah, then you probably need some weather stripping. That's like a $30 fix. That's nothing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be concerned about that, but like pay attention to that.
Yep.
Your heat is just flying out of there.
For sure. All right, so we're kind of getting to the door of the house now. Doorknob itself, like, is it really sticky?
Yep.
And maybe we shouldn't have called this like red flags, but these are like sort of little things that we look for. Some of them are red flags, some of them are like yellow flags, maybe.
Yes, like things that might need your attention after you purchase the house.
But they do add up, right? Like if
100%.
you're looking, Okay.
So we're in the house now.
Yeah, we're in. Are we in the house? Okay.
Are we going in the house?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go in. All right, open the front door.
Okay.
Now, what if the door like starts to close by itself?
So there's probably some unevenness
Yeah.
and unlevel, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe the door is just not installed perfectly, so maybe the door itself is like the hinges aren't, like the top hinges are loose or something like that, and it's just closing. Again, it could be very simple.
Yep.
But it could be very serious.
So when we started taking notes for this episode, it was before I had this instant happen, but I was at a house the other day and I looked down into the vent and I could see the basement. So what had happened was the front entrance is usually where you leave your winter boots and stuff like that. And over time, all the water coming off the boots and the salt and the water from the winter and the snow was leaking into the vent, and it actually like corroded the vent. And the whole thing was just a big hole. You could see right through the heating duct into the basement.
When you sent me that picture, it blew my mind.
I know.
It's like, how does that happen? Like, are they like taking apart batteries and the battery acid is dropping into the vent? Like, how does that even corrode?
Yeah. Well, even the home inspector said that was like the worst one he's seen. So there must have been just a lot, like the floors maybe sloped it the perfect way, and all the water was going down there. But it was. Yeah.
I wonder if people were taking off their boots and putting them on top of the vent to warm them up.
Yeah, it's possible.
Like maybe those people, that's just what they did for the last 20 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So look in the vents, make sure you can see the basement. Okay. And again, a new boot for that is like what, like $5, $6?
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally
not a big deal.
Super simple fix. It's mostly like a little bit of effort.
Yeah.
But like dollar-wise, it's nothing.
No.
But weird.
Yeah. I feel like the more and more houses we see, though, like the more we just see everything now. Mm-hmm. You just see all these weird things that you would never think of.
No, totally.
Okay, so we're in the house.
Yep.
Windows again, right? Like from the inside, you get a really good look at the windows, nice and close.
Yes.
And you can actually look at the age of a lot of windows too.
Yeah.
Right?
So if you look in the actual like pane of the window, not North Star windows actually don't show the year in them.
Okay.
But yeah, if you look into the actual pane of the window, you can usually see the stamp in the metal frame around the pane. that says what year they were made.
Yeah. I think if you get into like a really old window, they're not going to see that,
Yeah.
but then you can just tell because it's a really old window.
And you can tell that by like the different kinds of fasteners and stuff,
Sure.
the way it opens and closes, or the fact that it's been there for 45 years.
Yeah, exactly. Windows stick too, right? So I mean, checking the windows. I think just sort of checking like the general operation of the house when you're there is important. You know, open a couple windows, turn on the taps, stuff like that, which we'll get into more.
Lights on and off, like figure out which lights go with which lights, like which switches go with which lights.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a mystery switch in every house too.
Always, or like the switch that's way over there turns on the light that's way over there, or like there's three-way switches and stuff.
Yeah. You know, the houses in this era that we're in now, so like early 2000s, they put a switch on the main floor for the fan in the upstairs bathroom.
Yes.
Every one of them has it. I don't know why. This one does. And to this day, I still can't figure out exactly why.
Want me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you have a reason.
I actually do know why.
Yeah.
I attended multiple home inspections where the home inspector explained this to my buyers really nicely. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I know. So you have to, in newer homes, they put in like an HRV system for the air quality and stuff like that. So in the older new homes, the code wasn't that you had to have an HRV yet. So that was the way that you would have the air filtration in the home, by being able to turn on a light switch on the main floor. And it's usually to a bathroom on like the second level or something, and that's your air exhaust.
So, and I thought of that too, but my house has both.
Okay.
Like there's an HRV vent in that bathroom.
So it must have been around the time that like the HRV was really new and awesome, but they're still abiding by the old code or something.
All right. So I have a super house.
Yes.
It's got both.
So well ventilated. Your air is so clean here. I'm glad we're here.
Me too. Okay, so we're in the house still. What are we looking for now when we're walking around?
Condition of the floors. And again, that's maybe not a deal breaker because maybe you're in a house and you don't even like the floors and you're going to replace them anyways.
What about like the levelness and like, you know, you start seeing ups and downs and stuff like that, or if you like drop a bouncy ball and it rolls to the one corner?
Yep.
Because I carry a bouncy ball with me.
I always have bouncy balls and laser levels.
Laser
measures, not laser levels. I don't bring a laser level anywhere with me. I don't even know how to work that. So in older homes like 1920s and stuff like that, or even earlier, you can see visible ups and downs. Like if you compare one wall to the other and just like look at how they line up, you can see it or even feel it.
Yep.
Homes like this, it's not as common.
No.
Like if you're anything 20, 40 years old.
No. I remember when Avery was a baby and we lived in like an old farmhouse, and she always had these little plastic balls that she would play with, and every once or 2 months we'd have to clean them out from the corner because they'd all just drift to this one corner and they'd go under like her playpen and stuff, and they were always under there.
That's amazing.
It was hilarious.
The house was perfectly level.
But again, if you do see like slanted floors and stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean that the house is falling down. It just means maybe like 75 years ago it's settled.
It hasn't moved since.
It hasn't moved since. Usually most of the settling, like a home inspector will tell you, most of the settling in a home happens like in the first 10 years, right?
Okay.
From what I've been told anyway.
Having a home inspection, again, back to the preaching.
Yeah.
Not only like having a home inspection on paper, great. Going through the home with a home inspector, you learn so much.
So an actual red flag to me, and this is just sort of the general status of the house. If the house, you can tell it's like dirty, not well kept, like the people have just not loved the house. To me, that's one of the biggest red flags that you can find in a home. Like,
because if you can see that, what else are they not taking care of?
Well, exactly, right? Like people, you can walk into a house that's 5 years old and it feels like it's been lived in for 25 years.
Yeah.
To me, that just means the house has not been loved or cared for, and it just means they don't care.
Well, and if they don't care, did they change the furnace filter in the last 5 years? Like you're being really hard on your furnace by not changing that filter. Yeah. So many little things that are actually a huge deal when they're neglected for 10 years. Yeah,
and then the opposite works too, right? Like if a house has not been updated in 70 years, but you could eat off the floors, and like the general condition, I would buy that house before the 5-year-old home that's been abused.
100%.
Yeah.
And I've been through a lot of those houses where everything's so outdated. Like they have like the original like roll down linoleum floors, but like every little groove in those floors has been like toothbrush cleaned, like so clean, like not even a wear mark anywhere. Like those are the good houses, actually.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's walk into the kitchen.
Okay, so like the faucets again, like you mentioned, turning on the taps.
See if they work well.
Yep, cabinets, like something so simple, like do they all open and close?
Yeah, that's true.
Appliances,
are they working?
Yep.
Yeah, check out the appliances. Yeah, I mean, some of the older homes might have like proper wiring in the kitchen and stuff like that. So just see if they do. Again, it's not a big deal. Like, I mean, houses were built a certain way back, when, and they don't have to be up to code, but it's just something to consider. Like if that's a safety concern or whatnot, to have GFIs in your kitchen.
And that's a pretty simple update if you want it to be. But I've actually been in a few houses lately that have been built in the 50s, and along the kitchen cabinets, there are no plugins. So where do you put your coffee maker? Right. Where do you pull out your panini press or your blender? Like, you can't even use any of it in the kitchen. So you have to bring it over to like the kitchen table where there's a plug-in there. Yeah. So that's kind of annoying. Again, it's fixable, but
I just want a panini now.
I would eat a panini. Sure.
I could go for a panini.
With some brie.
Anyway.
Back in the house.
Okay, so walking through the house still.
Yep.
You go into the bathroom. What do you check? Fan?
Oh, exhaust.
Is there a fan?
There has to be an exhaust fan or a window.
Yeah.
You don't have to have both,
right,
according to code.
Yeah, new code, right? Yeah. But I mean, you should, right? I think every bathroom should have a fan or an operating window.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think a fan is a big pro. It keeps the moisture out of there, and moisture creates mildew, creates all those other gross things.
Health concerns, yeah.
And again, if there's not a fan in a bathroom, it's not that huge of a thing to do.
No.
I mean, it's annoying. You have to go into the attic and vent it out and stuff like that, but it's a doable thing, a couple $100.
Yeah.
Somebody grimacing while they're doing it, no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything, it can be remedied, right?
Yes.
Like, when you're looking at a house, focus on the things you can't change.
Yeah. Make
sure that those are in line, and then things that you can change, anything can be done, right?
Like flooring, electrical receptacles, putting in an exhaust fan, those things are pretty easy to change. I mean, yeah, they cost money and they take time, but like, if your house is where you want it to be, if it gives you the square footage you want it, and like, you don't have big things like all windows from 1920, like, it's probably a pretty decent house if it works for you otherwise.
Yeah. What about like red flags in terms of location? So, I mean, people might say, oh, I want this neighborhood for whatever reason. Maybe like the property behind there is like future development, right? And you don't want construction noise for 5 years. Yeah. Or maybe you're in like a flight path, or there's a train track over there that you didn't know about. So those are things, before we even get into the house, I kind of just thought of, like, you should probably research first.
You really love that street, but maybe not that end of the street, because maybe you're by a really major intersection or something. Or maybe you are across the street from a school. And while that might be convenient for many people to be across from a school, you're listening to recess bells, you're listening to kids screaming all day, and maybe you're a shift worker and you don't have kids, so that doesn't benefit you. Yeah. So maybe that's actually a huge negative for you. Like, those things really matter. Yeah, and twice a day you get like 100 cars parked in front of your driveway. If you have to go to work at 3 o'clock when the school's out, you're gonna be so annoyed every day when you back out. Yeah, it sounds like you wouldn't want to live by a school. Can you tell that? I don't want to live by anybody. I want to live in the country. Yeah, it's so true. I think a lot of the red flags that you find in houses are going to be found in the basement, right? That's usually where you can see like the mechanical side of things and if there's water in a house, that's when you're going to be able to tell. So like, what are some telltale signs of the water in a house? So the beautiful thing is, if a basement is finished or isn't finished, there's great ways that you can see either option. So if a basement isn't finished, everything's open, so you can see everything. Yeah. So if it isn't finished, you can see the efflorescence on the concrete, right? Like, you can see that white line. The white, sparkly looking stuff. 100%. You can see that there has been water up there at some point. Yeah. So this is a really tricky one. When I'm in a basement that's unfinished with buyers and you see that the concrete floor is freshly painted. Oh, yes. People are always like, that's a red flag. It's like, it might not be. Yeah, it might just be that they're really clean, right? And they just want to present the house well. But it might be them hiding blood stains. It's true. Yeah, it could be a red flag. But it might just be they like a cleaner space than bare concrete. It's true. Yeah. I always wonder too, like, if a basement is unfinished and it's been unfinished for like 20 years, why did you never finish it, right? Yeah, did you not need the space, or because water comes in sometimes? Yeah, and I don't always like to be that skeptical guy, but at the same time, you have to ask the questions, right? Like, if I had a full basement and all that space that could be utilized, why didn't you use it? Well, it could be that there was water, right, getting down there. Or maybe it's not tall enough. Yeah. So bringing your laser measurer, laser metal. So is there a sump pump too, right? Yep. I mean, a lot of the times, if you do find a house that has some previous water, it could be remedied by a simple sump pump install, right? And then you'll never have another issue again, especially if you've got a battery backup on that sump pump. Yep. Looking at the foundation walls for cracks. Now,
It doesn't necessarily mean that water's getting in, but that's usually a spot where water would get in if there's some cracks.
It's the weakest spot.
Yeah, yeah. Have there been previous foundation repairs? Sometimes you can tell if there was like a crack, then they've done like an injection into it to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a red flag, but I mean, just things to note, because that could be a point of intrusion for water in the future.
Or going back to outside, if you see the dimple board sticking up, that orange dimple board on the outside, then you can tell that at some point they've remedied some water coming in, which, water came in, that's a negative, but the pro is that they've spent all that money fixing so that nothing's coming in again.
Yeah, they've cared for it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And then if the basement is finished, I mean, you can probably tell right away when you walk into the house, like there'll be a smell.
Yeah.
I mean, the mold smell. I was in one yesterday or 2 days ago, and I mean, the moment I walked into the house, nope, can't buy this house. Yeah. No, it was bad. It was so bad.
And I've had clients with really good noses. Same thing. They walk in, they're like 100% no.
Yeah, you can see it too, right? You'll start to see like the mold coming through the drywall. It starts to discolor, and then eventually it gets black.
Yeah. But you can even see, like, drywall doesn't get wet well.
No.
Like, if drywall gets wet and then dries, like, it's ruined. So sometimes you'll go into a finished basement. I've been in many of these where the drywall is cut 2 feet all the way around the basement. Oh, I wonder what happened here.
Yeah.
They didn't just run out of drywall.
Yeah, they just don't like drywall on the bottom.
Yeah, no, they just want the top drywall. Yeah, no, there was definitely water there.
For sure.
But what happened? Did the hot water tank explode?
Ask the questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it could have been a failed plumbing pipe or something. You know, it happens sometimes.
Yes, and I don't know if you guys can see the stain above the chandelier there, but
I promise it will be fixed.
Things fail.
Yeah, plumbing does fail. It happens to the best of us.
You didn't know there was a bathroom right there.
I don't want to talk about it, but yes, it could be. Again, I think asking questions is the important part.
Yeah, because it could have been something so simple, but again, buyer's mind, which I get it, being a skeptic. Oh, there's the water in the basement? No, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah.
But it could have been something so simple.
Easily.
That isn't a deal breaker at all.
Yeah. So moving on from water, what else is in a basement that could be an issue? What about wiring?
Yes, so so I guess depending on the basement, I mean, like knob and tube wiring, aluminum wiring.
In a very old home, it could be prevalent still. I think there's less and less and less of them that we're seeing.
But if you're looking at like a home from like the 1900s, the basement is going to be unfinished. Yeah. It's going to be an old stone foundation. You go down there and you're going to find where there is that wiring, and you're going to see if there is any remnants, or in a really old house again, the attic. That's going to be a really great spot because that's usually an unfinished, really tall area. And if there was knob and tube, you're going to see it up there probably. Yeah,
knob and tube. I mean, there's not a lot of things about a house that scare me, but like foundation issues, water intrusion, and then knob and tube. That's a big one too, because I mean,
they have to pull everything behind all the drywall.
It's a big cost, right? It's a big cost.
I think we had a very rough quote on a very small house earlier this year. It was about $15,000 to $20,000. Right. Again, that's a small house.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to rewire a house that's finished.
Yes, and like you're living in a construction zone then, because you're ripping out chunks of drywall everywhere.
Yeah. So definitely a red flag. And then there's like aluminum wiring too, which can be a red flag. Now, I mean, there are ways of remedying that are a lot less intrusive than knob and tube, but it's still an expense, right? I mean, most insurance companies would want to see an ESA certificate that you've had it inspected, that the receptacles are proper for aluminum wiring, all that stuff. It's just, it could be a headache that you don't want to deal with, right? Yeah. The panel itself, like if it's an old fuse panel, perfectly safe, they're fine, and insurance companies don't really mind them, but it's an inconvenience.
And again, though, like I've been in houses with buyers, and I see a fuse panel, like, oh my god, heck no, like we can't do that. If the fuse panel is the only issue, all the other wiring in the house is pretty decent. It's like $2,500 to get a new panel put in. Yep. And I mean, that is based on me doing it like 3 years ago.
General cost,
so it could be a little bit more.
Yeah.
But not. I think my last 3 houses have all had fuse panels, and we've updated them all. Like, not a deterrent at all.
Not one bit. No. What about plumbing?
So I don't know a ton about plumbing. I know like about the kitchen P traps and stuff like that.
They're supposed to have them, yes.
So this is where it's not like I'm not the pro, right? I pretend to be.
Okay. There are certain plumbing types to watch for.
Oh yes.
So there's a plastic plumbing called poly B, and there's another one called Kitech. They're both like early stage sort of poly plumbings when they first came out.
And
Like
they're
now
skinnier.
and they're usually like the poly B is usually a gray color. Kitech was usually like red and blue, but not always. So you can see on them they have labels, like it'll say Kitech on it, or it'll say polybutylene, which is poly B. Those two types of plumbing were just prone to failure. Like so many cases of like failed plumbing across North America.
When did they use them? Like what roughly?
Poly B was used, I think, in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And I think it was right around the time there was like a copper shortage and copper prices went up. So they tried to find alternatives, right? And I think that was the same thing that happened with aluminum wiring in the 70s. There was a copper shortage, so they went to alternatives, and then aluminum wires started causing problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, just watching for that. If you see gray plastic plumbing, it's probably almost guaranteed poly B.
And this is a nice pro of having an unfinished basement because you can see it all, which is nice.
Exactly. And on that note too, if you do go into a house that has like a drop ceiling, like ceiling tiles, pull a couple out and look, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You're there to buy a house and it's investment. You're not intruding on someone, just have a look, right? So, what other kind of plumbing might be bad? Like drain pipes.
So you've got like the old cast iron sewage pipes and stuff like that.
Yeah, lead pipes.
Yes.
What else is in a basement? I'm just trying to think here. I'm sort of, my mind's narrow focused on plumbing now.
Furnaces. Your furnace is down
there.
there.
Have a look at the furnace. Yeah. Hot water tanks don't have a long shelf life.
No, 12 to 15 years.
Well, I think it's actually 10. Yeah. So the reason I found that out was because my hot water tank is a rental, and it was starting to get some rust on the bottom. So I called them about it, and the rental company said, that's like, it's 15 years old, it should be replaced. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, okay, why wasn't it replaced then if it's a rental?
Because it's up to you to call.
Yeah, I know, right? Which is a little silly in my mind. But so I called my insurance company, and they said if it's more than 10 years old and it fails, your insurance might not cover you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because that's the average life expectancy. So watch your.
But they're not going to replace it early unless you call,
because
that's money for them.
Exactly. So isn't it a corrupt system?
It is awful. Yeah, so you have to be on top of knowing when it is that 10-year mark.
Yeah.
Give or take, and then call and ask for a new one.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying the rental fee, same rental fee no matter what, so you might as well have a new one.
Yeah.
Especially if your insurance is going to cover it.
Yeah. Now, if you do get a new one installed, they may increase your payment a little bit. Just depends, because
now you have to re-sign probably a contract too.
They know how to make their money.
Yeah. How much is to buy your own hot water tank?
Like an electric one, like $400.
And then, that's not that bad, but if something happens to it, now you're responsible for fixing it and stuff like that. Yeah. And some people don't want to deal with that.
Some people just like the convenience of not having to deal with it. Because I think if you were to buy a gas one, they're a little more expensive, like $1,500 to $2,000 to put a new one in. So.
And I think most people rent their hot water tanks.
They do, yeah. It's really not a huge cost, $30 to $50 a month for peace of mind.
And then if something happens, if it does explode, then they come replace it right away. You don't have to worry about all of that.
Yeah, explode. That's a drastic word.
You explode, leak.
Kaboom!
What was that?
That never happens.
And actually, some people do rent furnaces and air conditioning units too.
They do, yeah.
Not very often, but it does happen.
No, it can be a deterrent when you go to sell.
100%.
You get this like rental fee of like $200 or $300 a month for all this equipment.
You pay for the furnace 3 times over.
You do.
Unfortunately, but sometimes like seniors, if they're in a position where they're probably going to be selling in a year or two or whatever, or they don't have the money for a new furnace, they don't have a choice.
Yeah. And they can usually be bought out, but watch your contract. Right? Have a look. Yeah. So that's another red flag too. Yeah. What is there like a lease to own contract? Can I get out of it?
Did it just start and it's good for the next 10 or 15 years?
Yeah. There's a lot of red flags in houses.
There's a few red flags. And I think, so are we done in the basement? Have we seen everything we need to see in the basement?
Well, I mean, what about, and I don't even like bringing this word up because it sounds scary, but what about like asbestos in a house?
So I guess, a couple of my houses have had asbestos in them. So we had like asbestos floor tiles. We had the typical asbestos wrapped like duck boot thing. Yep. And all of that stuff, like it sounds terrifying. It's fine unless you're touching it. Yeah. And like around your ductwork, are you touching that?
No, probably not.
No, like tiles on your floor, they're like those little crappy like plastic-ish tiles. Just put your flooring over them. You don't have to remove them.
Yeah.
they're fine. They're gonna live there forever, not ruining your life.
Yeah, yeah, and even like if you have attic insulation that has asbestos, if you're gonna do a big reno and you're gonna remove it, that's when it starts to become an issue because it's airborne then, right? They call it friable versus unfriable asbestos, and attic insulation is very friable. When it gets into the air, it can be a problem. But if you're never gonna renovate and it's just sitting up there doing nothing, it's really not harmful in my opinion. Yeah. And consult a professional.
Yeah, please don't take these words as professional legal advice.
If it was me, I think with buyers, it's important to point out really big things that could cause them a lot of heartache, but also helping them understand that no house is perfect and there's going to be little issues, and most of it can just be solved, right? Yeah. So.
And again, if you have a home inspection and you go through the house of the home inspector, they're going to point these things out to you and point out that they're not a big deal, unless you're going downstairs and like ruffle puffing on the asbestos wrapped ductwork and licking it.
Ruffle puffing?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Where did it come from?
That is a very common word in my vocabulary.
Is it? I'm learning so many things. Oh my goodness, ruffle puffing. Okay.
Don't ruffle puff the asbestos.
All right, yeah, that'll cause you issues. I just thought of another red flag, and it's sort of outside of the box a little bit, but if you walk into a house that has had a lot of renovations done, making sure that your realtor is checking to see if they had permits, right?
Yes.
That's a big one.
Because and are they still open?
Yeah, yeah. And if you call the city and find out that there were no permits, why? And like, that's a bit of an issue to me. Like, who did the work?
Well, and if you buy the house and there was no permits taken out for that work, if something's ever going to come back on anyway, it's going to come back on you as the current owner.
Yep, exactly. So making those couple extra phone calls, and then ask why there was no permits if there weren't any, and then like they're gonna have to defend themselves somehow, and like inform you why they didn't, or like who did the work, or
what would be a good reason for no permit for a big renovation.
I mean, it's a step, right? People just try to circumvent rules because they like to.
So did you use like licensed plumbers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Or did you do it all yourself from a YouTube video?
And then deciding, yourself if you feel like taking that on or not. Because, and there are certain things I think maybe I shouldn't say this, but maybe some of the permit processes that you have to go through are a little bit silly. Some things like technically you're supposed to get a permit if you change a toilet, which is crazy to me, I think. But if you're going to build a new deck, it's like a 2-story deck off the back of your house.
That makes sense. That it should be built right.
Yeah, that's a safety issue.
Yep.
But just checking to make sure.
But there is some things that are.
If there was a whole house renovation, like maybe they took out a wall that was supporting something and they didn't know.
Yes.
Right? Or they did know and they just don't care.
And like that's not going to show today or tomorrow. Maybe in 5 years, all of a sudden there's going to be a little bit of a whoop.
Exactly. So, anyway.
I think that is everything and probably a little bit more than I would look through naturally.
Do we scare everybody? No.
Is everyone afraid to buy a house now?
I think most of the stuff we talked about today was very remediable.
Yep.
To be remedied. Yep. Could be remedied.
100%. Like almost nothing we talked about was massive.
No. There are certain things that are hard to fix, and maybe you should run away if you see them. But most stuff, it's just normal house stuff. And
most houses, when I look for those things, they're not there. So it's a quick look. No, we're good.
Yeah.
No, we're good. Oh, this is good. Yeah, new this is good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and work with a realtor that's not afraid to point things out.
Yeah.
I'd say the more that your realtor points out to you that are negatives, the better that realtor is, in my opinion. If you walk through a whole bunch of houses and you never get told that this is that and this, like maybe you should just reconsider your relationship a little bit. Because we should be pointing out bad things. Yeah,
and I'm thrilled to point out good things, but like, did you notice this crappy thing over here?
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be.
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
So red and yellow flags.
Red and yellow.
And ruffle puffing.
Red and yellow ruffle puffs.